All right, guys. Hey, welcome to our webinar right now. We're excited that you've joined us. We've got a very special guest speaker. We're going to get started here in about 2 minutes. We want to encourage all of you as we get more people dialing in onto our webinar tonight. We just want to give you an opportunity to grab some paper. If this is your first time joining us, get your cameras ready so you can take some screenshots as we're going to be doing some PowerPoints here shortly, or you can take your notes the old school way. So just give us a couple more minutes and we're going to get started with our program here. So we look forward to spending the next hour and 15, 20 minutes with all of you. So we're going to go ahead and start this music back up. I know you guys were doing the Tootsie Roll in the background. And so we're going to get started just in a few minutes, guys. All right, everybody. Man, I'm fired up, guys. Tuesday Talks, baby. I hope you guys are excited, as I am right now. We're going to get started with our program. And get rid of my glasses. God, those things are ugly. All right, well, guys, I'm assuming you guys can all hear me. If somebody gives me a thumbs up or raise their hand and let me know you guys can hear me loud and clear. I'm assuming that you can. I am very, very excited as we get more of you guys dialing in. For those of you that are joining us for the very first time, welcome to Tuesday Talks. We've got an incredible star. This guy's a rock star as he's on standby. You guys can probably see him right now. Most of you guys are not going to be able to see each other. We're doing more of a webinar type meeting, so you're going to be able to see me and you're going to be able to see our special guest speaker. But let me just tell you, the guy that you're seeing on the screen right now is an international sensation. This guy is one of the hottest YouTubers around. And there's not a lot of very successful YouTubers. There's a lot of YouTubers, but they're not very successful, right? Now, the guy you're seeing right now on the screen is the real deal. He actually was broke at one time, and I mean, the guy was broke, lost, didn't know what he was doing in his life, confused, and had no direction, and just pulled himself together because he had what it took. And this guy has now become the founder, the CEO of this awesome YouTube channel called The Passionate Few, which, by the way, I got interviewed by this guy. He actually came over to my house right here inside my living room studio, and we did an awesome, it was supposed to be like a 30-minute interview, and I think we went like 2 hours, right? And then after that, we went driving around in my Ferraris and stuff like that around my community. But let me just tell you something. He has interviewed some of the biggest names in not just business, but in sports. And if you go to YouTube, you'll see some of the people he has actually interviewed, some of the biggest names, some of the biggest influencers today. And it was funny because we were chatting earlier today, and he said, John, I was actually on YouTube and I actually saw a video that you did 25 years ago about prospecting. I was like, oh my God. I mean, I can't believe that video is still up there on YouTube, man. Totally ages me. And that's when I had hair and I was about 30 pounds less. But anyway, absolutely fired up because this guy's now making millions of dollars. And even today with this pandemic and confined to his home, he is blowing it up all over the place. So without any further ado, I can't tell you how excited I am. We're going to do like a Q&A with him. And then for those of you, if you go down somewhere on your Zoom, you can actually type in some questions that if you really want to get that question answered, if we've got a few minutes here, we're going to answer a few of those, and Omar will be very, very excited to answer those for you. So without any further ado, Omar, welcome to our webinar, brother. How you doing, man?
I'm doing excellent, my man. Thank you so much for the kind words and the intro. I'm excited to serve your audience and serve your people.
Dude, you're a rock star, seriously. You know, hey, let me just tell you, I did that interview with you, and you asked some of the best questions I've ever had. I know you interviewed a good buddy of mine. His name's Ed Milet. And you interviewed Ed, and that also has hit, you know, 1 million views or more on YouTube. And so you're blowing it up, bro. And even Ed even said there's a scene where even Ed said, he goes, bro, I've been interviewed by a lot of people, and you asked some of the best questions ever. So it's kind of interesting that we reversed the role here. It's kind of like Ellen DeGeneres being interviewed on someone else's talk show, but. But today, I guess I get to ask some of the questions, and then we'll see if some of the people here can ask some questions too. But so here, I want to start off with you because earlier I was saying, you know, you are a YouTuber. You found this awesome platform called The Passionate Few.
Mhm.
But to this audience, for those that don't know you, and by the way, I really want to encourage all of you, you know, you guys, I'm not one that tells people to follow someone on YouTube or go to their YouTube channel or follow them on their Instagram. But, you know, when someone really brings genuine value and really has a desire to help people, and Omar is one of those guys, and he works really hard to do what he does. I mean, it's not easy. It seems easy, but it's a lot of work behind the scenes. And believe it or not, there's a lot of rejection, you know, in this world. And yet Omar is so tenacious that he has never given up, and that's why he is where he is today. But how Omar, did you get started? Let's talk about your background first of all, so everybody knows you. Everybody knows you now as a YouTuber. You got your own channel. You're doing a lot of stuff. But what did you do, like, growing up? You know what I mean? Like, did your parents say, Omar, go to college, be a doctor, you know, you got to be a lawyer kind of thing? And then how did you end up going into the whole YouTube, or what motivated you to want to go and interview people? So let's start with that.
Yeah, great question. So first off, I want to say I'm deeply honored to be here, and I appreciate every single person who decided to hop on. I know there are people who've studied, you know, what you teach. Some people might be familiar with my work, they may not, but I'm honored that anybody got on the call. So first of all, thank you, John, for having me, and thank you for you guys listening or watching for being here. I mean that sincerely. I appreciate you guys. Yeah, man, just to give you a little bit of context on my background, you know, before I started the show, I was, you know, classic story, broke, lost, depressed. I was $30,000 in debt. And I had the love of my life, who I thought was the love of my life, right? My ex-girlfriend. I'd always had different girlfriends, but I was kind of more like the Playboy type or whatever. And this was the first girl in my life that I was crazy about. Now, I'll get to my childhood and how it relates, but just to give you context, right before I started The Passionate Few, you know, where we've now interviewed over $10 billion worth of entrepreneurs. The John Paul DeJorias was just invited by Tony Robbins to go down in Florida. And, you know, we had all this opportunity and impact. Before all that, I was literally broke, lost, depressed, $30,000 in debt. Girlfriend broke up with me. One day, randomly, I was at the gym. I was so crazy about this girl. And point blank, we had fights in recent weeks, but she called me one day and just ended it cold turkey like that. And I was devastated. It crushed me. And I was in such a low point already that was a catalyst to really change my life. At the time, I was 24 years old. I had went to college, but I was looking for an opportunity. I was looking for a vehicle, and I couldn't find it. You know, I got different sales jobs before. At the time, I was working at Tesla. Before that, I was knocking on doors selling solar. I realized that I couldn't have any financial freedom if I wasn't selling anything, right? Nothing wrong with not selling or having a regular job, but I knew I wanted more. And I knew the only way to create that was through selling and offering people things that help their life in some capacity. And so I was like trying to play this game, trying to figure it out. I'm in this crux. I'm 24 years old, working at Tesla, hate my job. And so, yeah, man, she broke up with me, and it was in this place of desperation that I literally was like praying to God, asking for answers. You know, at the time, you know, I hate to admit it, you know, I don't drink or anything now, but at the time I was drinking a lot of alcohol, I was smoking a lot of weed. I was just in a really self-sabotage place. And I knew I wanted to do big things. I just didn't know how. Everybody's getting older. All my friends that I went to school with are now starting to make 50 grand a year, 70 grand a year, 100 grand a year, right? My parents are like, what are you doing? You're 24. And I didn't want to pick the wrong thing. I was tired of picking the wrong jobs. And so there's all this pressure building and building and building. And I'm telling this story for a purpose. So just hang with me. I realized that I wanted to do something meaningful, but I didn't know how to, right? And I think a lot of people can relate. You want to do something special, but you see the years going by, you see other people being successful, and you think, oh, well, that's them. I can't do it. You try, you bump into walls. And I couldn't figure it out. All the while I'm listening to personal development and Tony Robbins and all these people, but I just couldn't figure out how to apply it, right? I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. And so long story short, I was down to my last $300, and my buddy said, well, have you tried hitting up a coach? And I had heard of it, but I always thought like, oh no, like coaching and mentorship, that's like, yeah, it's, you know, that's just people who want to get rich or charge you money for advice. It's BS, whatever. But I was so desperate, I figured, F it, why not? Yeah, I had $300 to my name, emptied my bank account, the last $300 I had, which I should have paid toward my debt, but thankfully I didn't. is I hired a coach with the last couple $100 I had. His name was Dave Thorpe. And Dave changed my life because that night I put a joint in my mouth, and with tears running down my face, I met up with him at a Starbucks. So I was a little like buzzed, inebriated. And I remember we go into the Starbucks and he said, Omar, what would happen if life was perfect from this moment, right? You're in a rock bottom situation. And he said, Omar, I want you to write down, he says that you can't manifest anything that's ever been manifested in real life starts on paper. Regardless of your spiritual background, there would be no Christianity without Bible, right? Or Islam or Judaism without the Quran or the Torah, or blueprints for a business or for a building or whatever, right? You can't create until you write down on paper. And so many people have goals and ideas and hopes and dreams, but the same way an architect can't build a building with a team without it being concrete on paper, he was like, well, have you written down your dreams? And I know this is a long-winded answer, but roll with me here, is he told me to write down my prophecy, right? Write down, so he had me write down my eulogy, my prophecy, what Omar did, how much he made, who he impacted. And it was crazy, but I was like, screw it. I paid the guy, so, and I still have that paper, and there's still water, like dry water spots from the tears running down my face. 24 years old. And I write down, he says, if life was perfect, I want you to write down what happens next, right? Your past, we can't do anything about it, but from this moment forward, what happens? And I said, if life was perfect, I would impact the world. I would do something that's totally fulfilling. I would surround myself with some of the most inspiring people on the planet. I would make millions of dollars. I would inspire millions of people. I would have relative control over my time, and I would have a team of people who help me in my mission to serve humanity. And, I'm willing to weather the storms, but it has to be in a direction that I believe in, that's meaningful to me, not just for a check, right? There had to be something bigger. I wanted to serve people in a way that mattered. And we just sort of isolated the ingredients. And that's what he told me. He said, isolate the ingredients. Don't worry about the recipe, right? So many people in life focus on the end result or the thing. He said, don't overwhelm yourself with that. Focus on the ingredients. And then once we get a list of the ingredients, we'll figure out the dishes we can make with those ingredients. So, we wrote down all these ingredients. Life was perfect, this, that. As it started out vague, and then we started sharpening it up. And we went for hours. It was $300 an hour, but we probably went for 3 or 4 hours. Thankfully, he didn't charge me, but at the same time, he's now become a good friend, and I've more than paid him back for that in many ways, and we have good laughs about it now. But at the time, so I just wrote down this list of all my prophecy, and he said, write it down specifically. So I see myself this by 2019, this, and it's delusional, things that don't make sense, right? You got to understand, I come from a background of parents, great parents, meant the best for me, but not entrepreneurs. And I think anybody can relate if you're, an entrepreneur or salesperson or somebody who sort of has to earn your income every month as you grow your business. It's dependent on your production or your team's production. It wasn't a salary. It wasn't a set salary, right? I was working at Tesla as a sales rep. I knocked on doors in solar in sales, right? So it was dependent upon me. But long story short is, although they did their best, I didn't have these principles of entrepreneurship. I didn't know about team and building and recruiting. And I didn't understand. It was totally foreign to me. And I think a lot of you guys can relate to this. And I hope this is making sense to you, is I just didn't know what I didn't know. I just knew I had ambitions. I just didn't know how to act on them. So long story short, we write down this whole prophecy. And I wrote down, I see myself, and he goes, with who? And I said, well, Tony Robbins. And he's like, who else? And I'm like, well, this person and this person and this person. And I just started writing down, and at the time it was, the Grant Cardones and the Tony Robbins and the Lisa Nichols from The Secret. And, the list goes on and on. I've had John Paul DeJoria, billionaire creator of Patron Tequila and all this. So we write down all this stuff, and we keep going and going and going. And he's like, I want you to write down specifically, what day do you launch this? What day does this start? Getting specific. And now in retrospect, you guys might know that I have the show, and we've reached millions of people with the show and the podcast. But as evident as that may seem to you through John's intro, or you guys, who may just be learning about my work, is it wasn't clear to me then. I didn't know how to make a video. I didn't have any, how do I do an interview? Am I good? Am I even good on camera? Will people even watch? Shouldn't I focus on something that will produce income, right? I had all these limiting beliefs. But what that coach did for me, and I love Dave, and until this day, we have good laughs about it, but we started writing down everything. And here's an interesting story, John, and I think you guys will really love this. Every single thing I wrote down on that paper came true. every single thing. Not only that, to the degree, and we can get into the meat and potatoes of it, but to the degree that in December, I was invited personally by Tony Robbins, comped my ticket, $10,000 ticket for Date with Destiny, got to hang out backstage with Tony, got to have a photo with him, and I'm going to be interviewing him probably at his house, and, you know, developed a good relationship with Tony. To think that I was once crying in a car, desperate, you know, smoking weed, drinking, just really self-sabotage, listening to Tony, trying to better my life. To think that just somehow in the span of 3.5 years, I'd be with him backstage, comped at a ticket for an event, recognized for my work, meeting all these amazing people, impacting, you know, the millions of dollars, millions of people, right? To think that all that would happen, sometimes I'm like, whoa, like, I can't even believe how it happened, but it all started with me writing it down on paper. And funny story, and I'll wrap up the point with this, is I was in a place of desperation and inspiration combined, where I had the inspiration, like so many of you do, to want to better your life, to want to adapt to any situation, right? To, you know, right now we're going through quarantine with COVID-19. And so many of us are maybe we have businesses that were affected by this and we're trying to figure out how to leverage it, or maybe we just started something and then, or we had deals in the pipeline and they fell through, or maybe we're trying to figure out what to launch, right? Whatever it is, you have that adversity right now. I was in that situation. I'm sure you guys can relate in many a context, but I'll never forget, me and Dave talked about this line from Tony where he says, nothing in life has any meaning except the meaning that you give it. Very important here. Nothing in life has any meaning except the meaning that you give it. So I had a choice with that breakup. And when she broke up with me and broke my heart, I could choose the meaning of, this means that I'm a loser, I'll never be with somebody, I should be in pain, this sucks, right? And those things will happen, right? We're human, we have emotions. But at the same time, he said, well, if you wanted to take control of this meaning, why is your life better because of this breakup? Why is this breakup the greatest thing of your life? Why would this breakup make people relate to you more? Why would this breakup, how could this breakup help you make money? How could this breakup help you to relate with humanity? How could this breakup help you with other people who break up? And I started, ask yourself a question, you'll get an answer. So we started asking empowering questions, writing down empowering answers. And in this powerful brainstorm, I ended up deciding, maybe it's a little spiteful, but I think you'll get a kick out of this. My ex-girlfriend was obsessed with 3 things: hot Cheetos, working out at the gym and eating Quest bars, and Grant Cardone. Okay, you with me on this? So check this out. So in the heat of the moment, I said, you know what? I think I know who I want to interview first. I want to interview the creator of hot Cheetos, right? The $1 billion creator of hot Cheetos, who was a janitor. I want to interview the $1 billion creator of Quest bars, and I want to interview Grant Cardone. Fast forward, within 6 months, not only did I do whatever it takes through countless rejections to get in person with all of them, I interviewed creator of hot Cheetos, $1 billion creator of Quest, Tom Bilyeu, and Grant Cardone, and all 3 of them became the most watched and downloaded interviews with them on the planet. On the planet. Hundreds of thousands, cumulatively millions of views and downloads. But I had no experience, no channel, no credibility. I didn't know if I was good, but the fire inside was so strong because I wanted to prove to her, like, oh, you don't want my time? Well, I'll show you who wants my time. A little spiteful. And I've long, that motivation only lasted a couple months in the beginning, but that was really the catalyst for me to take radical, massive action and do whatever it took. And I'm happy to answer questions about how I did the impossible to get those interviews, but that was the catalyst. And then one interview turned into another, and all these doors and opportunities started opening up. So that's how it all began.
So I love that. And what I think what everybody else is asking now is someone, just your mental state at that time, which has the effect of your physical state, your emotional state, and you finally get the courage to call up, not like, the guy who's selling a burger on the sidewalk, or some potato chips, but you actually call up a huge company, the founder of a huge product, hot Cheetos, right? And you call up Grant Cardone, right? And everybody's trying to reach Grant Cardone these days, right? Yeah. So what did you say? How do you get in the door? For a lot of people that are on this call or on this webinar right now, they don't have the courage. They're wondering, what if I get rejected?
Yes.
Excuse me, what if they say no and it hurts my feelings and I don't want to go through that? So let me ask you, what did you say to those people to get in the door, and how did you get their contact information to get in the door?
Great question. So I'll answer for those three and any other ones that you have. But for those three, I'll tell you the story. But I want to preface that the story with this thought is, and this thought till this day motivates the hell out of me, is everybody has fear. John, you have fear. I have fear. We all have fears. It's how we wrestle with that and dissipate it over time that makes the difference, right? When I talked to John Paul DeJoria, creator of Patron Tequila, we just sold his company for just over $5 billion a couple months before I interviewed him, less than a year ago. I asked him, I said, how often do you find in business that you have no idea what you're really doing and you're like fearful? And he goes, oh, that's like 90% of the time. When you meet people, nobody really fully understands what they're doing, but you gain competence in the failure, in the action of the uncertainty. You just become a little less uncertain, a little less fearful. But fear is sort of like a knot. And you have to, people say, well, I can't listen to the headphones because there's a knot. Well, the process of untying the knot to listen to the headphones, that's where the growth happens. So there was the fear, but here's the preface is you're going to die. And realizing that I'm going to die. So there's no, you can feel the fear, but on the other side of it, know that you're going to die. So best case scenario, if you cater your fears, you die and did nothing. I want to die and leave a body of work that matters. I want to have a body of wealth that my kids can live off, that can help other people. So there was that hunger, because if you don't have that, I can give you the logic and the strategies on how to connect with people, and I will. But if you don't have a compelling reason to, there's no reason to follow through. If I say, hey, say your house is on fire, you came home and your house is on fire, but nobody was in it, would you run in to grab your pen? Probably not. But that same exact fire, would you run in to grab your loved one? Absolutely. Why? Because it was so compelling that you're willing to face the thing. So I think most people don't have a compelling why. But once you have a compelling reason, which I did, the strategy of how to do it, it wasn't logical. It was emotional. And I mean that because if you're not emotional about your goals and making things happen, very hard to achieve things logically. Things are way too hard, way too many obstacles. On the practical level now, all three stories. So let's start with Grant Cardone. I live in LA. Grant Cardone lives in Florida. I have no connection to him, zero. On Instagram, right? Instagram stories, which we all have. I was on Instagram and I saw that Grant was in town in LA from Florida. I live in LA. He was in Florida. And I saw that he was in town in Beverly Hills for like 2 weeks or something on vacation. This was in 2017, so 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. And I saw that he was in town, and because it was emotional, right? If I was logical, I'd be like, oh, what's the odds? Or let me call, or let me email, or let me write. But because it was emotional, my brain was like, well, what about this? What about that? What about, you think of these little crevices of opportunity. I said, well, hey, shoot, what if I got in his face? And I know, John, we talked about this in the interview with you, is when you wanted to get, deals and help people and prospect, you'd go, well, who's open, right? You wouldn't say, oh, well, it's 1 a.m. I can't go prospect anywhere. You were like, oh, it's 1 a.m. Who's open? Oh, let's go to Denny's. Let's go to this Denny's. Let's go to that Denny's. Let's go to the doctor's office. They're open. And you would get deals that way, right? Because you were emotional about it. And the emotion gave you insights and ideas that your logic wouldn't have access to if it wasn't a deep-rooted things, right? I think of the brain kind of like roots. And the deeper your why, the deeper the roots will dig down to find solutions and ways. But if it's just logical, the roots aren't strong. The roots aren't, there's not a deep-rooted reason of why. And I think most people live in that space. Now, Grant Cardone was in town. I looked at his Instagram story. I saw that he was in Beverly Hills, and I heard in the background of his Instagram story, which anybody could have done in LA, and he travels all over the country, so anybody could have really done, is I saw that he was like, hey, Elena, hey, babe, you want to go have dinner at this restaurant in Beverly Hills at 7:00? And she was like, yeah, I'd love to, babe. So I was like, huh. So I got on my laptop and I Googled the name of the restaurant in Beverly Hills. I see that they're going to be there at 7, and I'm like, huh. So I keep watching his story, looking for clues. Now, mind you, I have no reference of confidence of this stuff actually working, right? I feel weird. I'm a stalker. I'm nervous. That would be dumb. I'm going to go. To be honest with you, I don't even think I had a podcast up at the time. I maybe had a logo. So I didn't have a body of work or any views. I don't even think I had 1,000 downloads or views. And, but I said, F it. Let's go. Let's roll. So I go there. I drive in traffic. First, they were at the gym. I drive in traffic 2 hours to Beverly Hills. As you know, in LA, it takes 2 hours to get to LA from LA, right? You don't really get anywhere in traffic.
Yeah.
So I drive 2 hours there to the gym that they were at. Didn't work. I'm like, oh, this is stupid. Drove home 2 hours. And then later saw what I just told you guys about. They were going to the Beverly Hills restaurant. And I was like, oh man, I just drove there and back. I'm going to look like an idiot. I was like, screw it. I already wasted 4 hours of the day. I drive back again to Beverly Hills. So I drive 2 hours to Beverly Hills, 2 hours back, and then 2 hours again. And they have dinner at 7. So I'm driving to Beverly Hills at like 5 o'clock. It's like the worst traffic hour on a Friday. It ends up being 2.5, whatever. So I drive there and I'm so nervous. I don't have any money. John, I'm not joking when I tell you, I barely had enough money in my gas tank to get there. When I got there, I had to have a friend PayPal me money to get gas to go back. So I drive in my beat up, I don't know if it was a Nissan Maxima. I don't know. I drive down there, and mind you, I'm like sweaty, I'm nervous, my armpits probably smell, and my mouth's probably dry from just the anxiety of thinking, what am I going to say? I don't have any money. I haven't ate all day, right? Like I'm just there are all these stacked up reasons, and this is stupid. I like, why would he say yeah? Right? But my plan is to go pitch him to do an interview. Okay. So I end up driving, get to the restaurant. I go inside. I don't belong there, right? It's Beverly Hills, fancy place. You have to have a caller. She's like, I'm not even part of it. I go in to pretend to use the restroom. I don't have the dress code. So I pretend to go to the restroom, and I go to the restroom, but I pretend that I had to in the restaurant. And I go in, and as I'm walking to the restroom, kind of like peeking out the room, seeing if Grant is actually here at this 7 o'clock thing, right? Total guess. This is probably not going to work, but who cares? I won't tell anybody, whatever. No exaggeration. So I go inside, I go to the restroom, and I don't see anybody inside in the restaurant or the thing. And I'm like, oh, I probably just heard it, and they're not even going to go there. How often do people throw out dinner ideas and then go to somewhere else, right? So I'm like, oh, whatever. On my way out of the restroom, about to go home, in the corner of my eye, I hear Grant Cardone's voice. And I look and I see him and a couple in Elena having a bottle of wine. And I realize they haven't even got their food yet, so this could be a while. I go outside to the front. I scope out the place. I scope out the valet. What are the exits? What are the entrances? Totally in my mind thinking like, man, I need to get a job. Like this is silly that I'm even doing this. I'm like 25 years old at this time. Like, I can't believe this is what my life has come to. Totally broke. Like, I mean, there's no reason this should have logically worked. I wait outside the restaurant. I find the exit, right? Scope it out. Now I'm waiting outside the restaurant parallel to it because I don't want to stand in front of it. Like, you know, I'm not dressed Beverly Hills-ish. And I see the door open. Every time the door opens, my heart beats fast. Is it them? Is it not them? And then it's not them. So then my heart chills. So I have this permanent adrenaline and then no. Adrenaline, no. So I'm feeling every amount of fear that anybody on this call would feel with a prospect, with a sale, with reaching out, right? Whatever. Finally, an hour and a half later, my endorphins are completely depleted, right? My anxiety, it's completely depleted. Imagine you're in a paced anxiety of like the door opens and I'm like, what am I going to say? How am I going to say it? My brain's on. Lo and behold, an hour and a half later, they come outside the restaurant and go up to him, nervous and, you know, hey Grant, I'm a big fan. And he turns around like, you know, who's this guy? I kind of go up to him like a weirdo. And I was like, hey, sorry, don't mean to interrupt you. I just saw that you were in town and I just wanted to meet you and shake your hand. And I was wondering if I could get a photo. And he was like, yeah, man, sure, absolutely. Nice to meet you. Shook his hand, took a photo. And I said, by the way, and this was my first quote unquote successful sale at this level. I brought up all the objections in advance, right? All the possible reasons why he would say no. I said, by the way, I was going to pitch him for the interview. I said, by the way, Grant, I know you're in town for a couple of weeks. Mind you, I have no clue how I'm going to do this. I said, you know, hey Grant, I know you're only in town for a couple weeks, but I was wondering, by any crazy chance, would you be open to do a podcast interview where I'd come interview? You don't have to go anywhere. We'll come to you. Super simple. We'll be in and out in 1 hour. Now I don't have a lot of listeners. We're getting it off the ground, and I know you would normally never say yes to this request. I know you would normally never say no, but I figured since you're in town, I'd like to help you reach at least some people instead of just being in town and you know, hanging out. You know, I would love to add value and promote your book, promote whatever it is. You've really impacted my life in a deep way. We'll be, you know, We'll be in and out in an hour. I know you would normally never do this, but if you're willing to be making the exception, consider me the young man you once were who was looking for a shot. Just pitched him like that. And he goes, and I told him I had driven. He goes, let me get this straight. You drove 2 hours there, 2 hours back, 2 hours here just to ask me if you could interview me. And I said, yes, sir, man. Like you say, man, sell or be sold, whatever it takes. He's like, hey, I like you, man. He's like, you got a card on you? And I said, yeah. Pull out my card, the last card I have. I give it to him. He looks at it, he goes, yeah, I'll give you an interview. He said, my assistant will get in touch with you. His assistant got in touch with me an hour later. 2 weeks later, we filmed the interview. Within 10 days of that occurrence, it ended up being the most watched and downloaded Grant Cardone in the whole world ever. Till this day, I think it still is, if it's not number 2. But that was that story. And then me and Grant ended up becoming friends. I did an affiliate deal with him. And then now I've had him on the show 3 times. And now he hires our production company in LA anytime he's in town to do stuff. So developed a business relationship with him as well. He's become a client of ours, and not only that, we've impacted people with that. Creator of Hot Cheetos, second story. I pitched this guy relentlessly. He's not on any social platforms. He was a janitor who created Hot Cheetos, pitched it to Frito-Lay, sold it, gets a percentage of revenue on every bag sold. As you know, everybody loves Hot Cheetos, right? And you guys can watch this on the Passionate Few YouTube channel or podcast. Just search Hot Cheetos Creator Passionate Few. It's like a full hour and a half long interview. I think there's like 500,000 views, give or take, on it. But I reached out on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram. I found his name, but he didn't have any of those platforms. So I found out who he was married to. I Googled who his family was. I found them on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I would add them and message them. I had no clue. I had a friend who told me that they ran into him coincidentally from a suit tailor in a certain city. So I called the suit tailor and asked him if it was true. And he said, yeah, I thought I was a weirdo. I ended up going to the suit store and buying a suit just so I can develop rapport with this guy. He ends up giving me the tailor who does Mr. Montañez's suits gave me his email and said, don't tell him that you got it from me. So I would email. I was relentless. I just thought, again, it goes back to the why. So I emailed him and no response to anything ever. Then I found out he was doing a speaking event, went to the speaking event, pitched him. He said no. Finally, he started Instagram. I started messaging him, still said no. Second event, said no. Third event, I go up to him. I'll never forget this. And now he's become a good friend. And I'm probably the most close with him than anybody I've interviewed in terms of how often I hang out with him, except John, of course. John's my guy. But yeah, so I go up to him the third time, and I didn't even say a word. He goes, man, you just don't give up, don't you? I said, no, sir. I said, the same way you did with Hot Cheetos, right? So I constantly used the narrative of, I'm the young man you once were looking for an opportunity. And that spoke to people. It wasn't, could I get an interview? It was, how can I bring you value? I didn't come from the perspective, can I interview? It was always, can I help promote your book? Can I help promote your story? Can I help promote your nonprofit? Same thing with John Paul DeJoria, right? So I came from that place, and he goes, fine, I'll give you the interview. Today, we've become good friends, and he hits me up all the time. Come to my house. We got to do the hot salsa. Frito-Lay sends me boxes of Hot Cheetos. Girls I end up dating end up eating all the Hot Cheetos anyways. But, it just became this like phenomenal thing of, he goes, finally, yes, we do the interview, it blows up. Tom Bilyeu from Quest Nutrition. I DM'd him 12 times on Instagram. $1 billion creator of Quest Nutrition. DM'd him 12 times. Didn't respond to any of them. Elegant persistence. I talk about it. There's one thing about being pushy. I was elegant in my persistence. Anytime someone said no, I said, okay, no problem. Would it be okay if I follow up next month? Because if they say yeah, then when I follow up, they see on the thread of the communication that they gave me permission to follow up. So I get something. If I don't get the opportunity now, I'll get something. So after 12 non-responses, that was the easiest, I'm not joking. That was the easiest thing ever. I messaged him the 13th time. He goes, oh, hey, Omar, sorry, I didn't see your message. Yeah, absolutely. This sounds good. Come to my house in Beverly Hills, da-da-da. Here's my assistant's number. Can you do Tuesday at 3 a.m.? So I said, yeah, absolutely. I had no money. I said, yeah, absolutely. I called my friend, asked him if he could give me a ride. I go down there. We go on Craigslist and find a random videographer. I didn't have a team or anything. I hired and met the videographer and audio engineer that would go on to become my team as part of my production company in front of Tom Billy's house, pitch black at 3 a.m. in Beverly Hills, 15 minutes before we actually interviewed Tom. I just won the whole thing. And then Tom's been on the show multiple times. We've helped him promote and we've become friends. So those are just 3 examples. And I'll make the rest of my answers a little more short, not as long-winded, but I just want to give your audience context as to the lengths that I went to make things happen, and the lengths that they can go to probably even more conveniently by creating content or creating something to help their business in their current situation of doing whatever it takes. There's always a way if you're committed. Always.
Yeah. I mean, everything you just talked about right now, it's so applicable to every single one of you that are listening in right now. I'm not really sure. I'm assuming a lot of you are in the financial service industry. A lot of you are on my team. A lot of you dialed in today to this webinar, not quite sure. Maybe you have a job, right? Maybe some of you guys are, hey, I saw this post and I wanted to see what this was all about. And I'm glad you guys joined us, because with everything that Omar's talking about, there's a couple takeaways, right? One is ask without fear. That's something that I always talk about. And that's what Omar did. He asked without fear. Number 2, you talked about perseverance. A lot of you guys, you get rejected once or twice or 3 times, and you're like, okay, this isn't for me. You let somebody hijack your dreams. You surrender. You throw in the towel, you put up your white flag and you give up. Listen to Omar. I mean, it just blows my mind. Talk about the epitome of persistence, Omar, to call somebody 13 times. I mean, like, holy smokes. I mean, seriously, like, you're just on it. Like, I actually had somebody today who literally texted me, called me, I think 5 times today, like literally nonstop. And I almost feel guilty. I just didn't have time to take her call.
Bingo. That's it too, is you almost, not guilt, but people see how serious you are when you're persistent.
Yeah.
And they appreciate that as long as you're elegant in the communication. But go ahead. I didn't mean to interject. But
that's great. It's great. But I mean, it's like all that stuff. It's awesome. But I am kind of curious now. Bro, you are one tenacious son of a gun, man. You're like a pit bull, right? I mean, now I'm curious, like those other 2 guys you contacted, amazing people, Tom, all those guys, a billionaire. I mean, you had the kahunas to call a billionaire.
Yeah.
So how did you? I got to ask. I mean, how did you approach a billionaire? I mean, you got some kahunas, bro.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. I think a big part of it is being so, and here's the thing, I always remember what it's like. I'm very acutely aware of what it's like to be broke and struggling and see other people successful, or, see stuff and be like, damn, how do they do that? They're made of the same skin and bones as me. They have the same flesh. They're not any smarter, brilliant, or better looking. I'm not particularly good looking or tall or this or that or whatever. But like, how do they get there? What do they do? How do they figure out? And what I realize when I meet people is that it's never complex. Like, John, when people look up to you and they're like, dude, how did you build this massive, 9-figure organization, have, make millions of dollars, create total financial freedom, have the insane amount of cars, and they imagine it to be this complex cloud. Whereas I would bet you that to you, it was actually simple. I mean, it was work, but it was simple and consistent for a straight thing for a long period of time. And eventually that stuff sort of comes to you and unfolds in momentum. Most people imagine it as this big complex thing. So, when you say the billionaire thing, even with, I'll tell you the billionaire thing. So that was actually an interesting story. And I believe that the universe, when you're consistent, the universe conspires with you in what you're doing. I'm a firm, it's a little pseudo, but I'm a firm believer that the universe will honor momentum. A lot of people call it karma, but I think, and you can label it that way, but my personal belief is that the universe is looking to reward people. The universe is abundant in resources. There's plenty of money. There's plenty of everything, but the universe, it has to have a way to decide who gets what, right? Mm-hmm. And if you just reverse engineer it, it's going to award the people who are most consistent in serving a direction. And circumstances and people are going to come in your life to serve that direction, that vacuum of momentum. So in that spirit, on a more tactical level, I had a personal trainer that I was working with, and it goes to show the power of just when you're talking about your dreams, how you speak it into existence. I was working out with a personal trainer of mine. He is actually, his mom is best friends with John Paul DeJoria's assistant. So we just struck up a conversation. We had our workout 11 and 12. By 1 p.m., we had an email thread going with his assistant booking the interview with John Paul DeJoria. Easiest thing in the world.
Yeah.
And it was smooth. But see, my point is that when a lot of it is internal, because as simple as it sounds, if I didn't have the guts to even think about doing the show or interviewing billionaires or talking to my trainer about the people I'd like to interview, it just would have never occurred to him, right? So many people in our life, you guys, even in quarantine or in your day-to-day life, I guarantee you that you're running into countless amounts of prospects, people you can sell to, people to build your team with, people you can help, that because you are not congruent and certain and convicted in what you're doing, you're missing that opportunity because you're just not radiating that energy. Mm-hmm. He's the one who volunteered the billionaire thing, which then opens up more doors and more dominoes. So it might sound like, oh, dude, you just talked to him about it. That's simple. But, in the famous words of Jim Rohn, what's easy to do is also easy not to do. And so many of us aren't doing the easy things, that we're looking for complex personal development answers, that it's like, just do the simple things with an emotional intensity and conviction and watch what happens. There's a lag time to everything. You could do everything right for an avocado tree. It's still going to take years. You're not going to rush. You're not doing the right things if the avocado doesn't pop out day 1 or day 2 or day 100. If you want a beautiful garden, you gotta, you reap what you sow. But if you want a big, beautiful garden, be willing to plant the seeds for a big, beautiful garden. And so many people are just trying to put a seed, nothing's there tomorrow. You know what? I need to try a different seed in a different garden, right? Mm-hmm. I'll give you another example. Tony Robbins, to me, somebody that changed my life, especially when I was on a low point, and I had the privilege of getting to meet him and tell him that in person. One of the most surreal experiences of my life, let alone him recognizing me. I have an audio. Can I play you the audio? And I don't mean to be long-winded, but can I play you the audio just so that you guys can see?
Yeah, play it.
Cool. And funny story as I pull it up here, I've been trying to get Tony Robbins on the show for 2.5 years before I ended up connecting with him, and it became a relatively easy thing, to the degree that I found his secretary, and for the last 3 years, on her birthday, on her and her husband's anniversary, and on Christmas, I send them cards and boxes of See's Candy chocolates just to nurture his secretary to give me an interview. Like, she told me no, and I said, hey, no problem. The first year she said no because I wasn't big enough. I said, no problem. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Did my homework, found the office, sent her gifts, to the degree that her husband is a fan of mine for sending boxes of See's Candy's chocolate to them, right? So it's just insane amounts of conviction to do things. I would later connect with him through a different medium, but the seeds of that create opportunity. And his secretary is the PR agency, and they have other people who ended up getting interviewed on the show. So there's this ripple effect of value. It's not always linear when you put out conviction of energy, but watch this.
Omar, it's Tony Robbins. Listen, my dear brother Dean told me your story, man. You got to be so fucking proud of yourself, man. I'm glad I got to play a small role in helping you to make that turn, but you did it, and you get to own it for yourself. And I'm so happy to hear what your life is like today. And thanks for helping us reach more people as well in our mutual desire, Dean and I, in partnership to make this happen. So listen, man, I don't think you've been to Date with Destiny, so you'd like to come as my guest. I do it only once a year. It's in my most intense program. And it's in December, and I don't know off the top of my head what the date is. I think it's like the 6th, 7th. You can look online. But it's a 6-day program, total immersion. It's usually $10,000. I'll invite you as my guest just as an acknowledgement of the good that you've done with yourself, but also it's obvious you're doing good for others as well, brother. So, and I'll take a picture of me, Jonathan, and my assistant help tie that together. So if you want to do that, I'll make sure that happens for you here. All right, brother, take care of yourself. God bless.
That's awesome. Bravo, man. Good. Love it.
And I'm not saying this to impress you guys. I'm saying it to impress upon you because it humbles me that was even possible, and that people who are listening right now, as insane as things might sound to them, by taking action. Again, I'm not saying this to impress you. I'm saying it to impress upon you what's possible for you guys to do in your own life. And I know, John, you're a big advocate of that. It's like, it's fulfilling that I did it, but the most fulfilling thing in the world is that the show, and that's why I've interviewed people like yourself, to show the humanity behind it. John, you didn't have all these answers figured out. but you realize I have to adapt to environments. I have to be resilient. I have to try to make things happen. And because of that, boom, things happened.
Yeah. Awesome, bro. I've got a few questions here from some people I want to ask you real quick. One is, what are the top 3 questions that you typically ask the people you interview? And why those questions? And if you could only ask one question, what would be the one question that you ask?
Okay, both great questions, and I'll keep my answers shorter. I know I'm like super passionate about my answers, so I apologize. But for the 3 questions, I would say is, I always enjoy these 3. So number 1, I always like to ask, what was the moment where things shifted? For John, it was getting an opportunity in the industry he's in, right? I always want to go to the moment of shift, transformation. In my case, it would be the moment I decided to write things down and put it into action, even though I was in rock bottom. So number 1, I love asking people, where was the moment where things shifted, where they were going one direction and then boom, something happened and you went a different direction. What was that moment? Take me to that. Where were you, right? So a question around that, the transformational moment that was compelling to them, right? What was one transformational moment that changed the entire trajectory of your life? That's the first question. Second question I like to ask is, what's a present day situation, challenge, obstacle that you're facing, and how are you learning to get over it? Because what this does is it gives you context. Not only, sometimes when you interview people, a lot of us can, and I've learned this from doing this so many times, and not in a bad way, but sometimes it's, stories are told through a romantic lens, right? You guys might hear my story and it sounds like a romantic, wow, he overcame that. But in the moment, it was a word I probably can't say on here. It was ship. So when you ask people, what's a present day challenge you're going through, to a billionaire, and he tells you, well, I'm having a tough time with systems and, operations and, foreign development, whatever, then it makes you more acutely aware of like, oh, wow, he still has challenges. He's not done or finished. Like, and it makes you realize like, oh, wow, like how is he in present day, in real time, this wealth of knowledge, how is he handling situations? And maybe I can apply some of that wisdom myself or in your own life. So that's one thing I love to ask, right? What's a present day challenge? Instead of just about the past, what are you presently working on? Sure. Third thing I like to ask is similar to that. I like to ask, there's obviously, what's your one piece of advice? That's very important, I think. But on a more specific thing, I would say, what's one time in your life or business where you were really stuck for an extended period of time? And how did you get out of that? What was the one thing you did different, or the one what was the one lesson that got you out of a real funk in the past that you just couldn't find a way out? For me, if that moment of transformation, something they're dealing with in present day, and also something in the past that was a big hindrance or whatever, and they solved it, that's where you're going to find the powerful answers. At the end of the day, the only thing that's stopping you and your dreams is your ability to problem solve. Life is a series of questions, problems, and solutions. And most problems are self-constructed, right? So the more problems you can solve for yourself, others, your team, the less problems you'll have for yourself. Does that make sense?
Right. Good. All right, let me give you another question here. This comes from Karam. He says, could you explain a little bit more about elegant follow-up? Sometimes I struggle to keep on following up with someone feeling that I'm bothering them if they don't respond to me at all.
Great question. Yeah. So it depends on the context. And if you want to type in context more specific, I'm happy to answer it. I'll answer this one, but if you have a more specific thing, I'm happy to help as well, Karam. But basically, elegant persistence is, the best way to think of it is sell how you would like to be sold. Like, think how many times have you gone, someone tries to offer you something or sell you something and you're not interested, but you're like, man, I'm not interested, but I really like that guy, but I really, if I ever did buy, I would buy through that guy. Or I don't know, I'm like this, I don't know if you're like this, John, where you don't even need the thing, but you like the guy so much that you want to buy it just to help that person,
Yeah, you're right.
What I realize is like, you cannot transfer that with which you're not experiencing. And I think this is why getting in state is important, and you being sold yourself, because there's a certain relaxation. It's kind of like, say you're going on a date with somebody and you're trying to get in touch with them. If you go into it with like, okay, I'm going to convince her to like me. How do I elegantly, right? If it's a logical thing and it's not just a being, like a lot of times for me, the question is, how can I attract them? How can I be an attractive character where even though I'm the one who's, quote unquote pursuing, I'm pursuing from a place of something that's attractive to them. Remember, people only go to work to fulfill their values. Sales, whether you're selling an idea, a team, or whatever, what you're really selling is values. You're not selling the product. Apple is not selling metal. They're selling the values of their thing. Whether you're in the financial services industry, you're not selling a piece of paper they sign. You're selling a value. Hey, do you value financial independence? Hey, do you value financial security? So when you come from that place, a lot of the most, I think only 7% of communication, transactional communication is the words. The rest of it is tonality, energy, eye contact, right? It's those things. So make sure that that's right. Now, if it's a digital thing, I'll give you advice for that. But if it's an in-person thing, a lot of it is energetically you coming from a place of being a valuable person. And if you really care about human beings, selling is caring. If you care about human beings, even if you're not kinesthetically saying that, people will feel it. And then you might only have to say one thing instead of 10 things, but it comes out with just the right amount of tonality and energy. And this will comes over time. And I know you might be hearing this and go, well, no, it's not specific. Give me something tangible. But there's a reason. I've interviewed some of the most successful human beings on the planet, and I've done it over a sustained period of time that I can tell you very humbly, not because I'm a know-it-all, but because I've stood on the shoulders of giants and got to learn from, people like John and others, is like, they will tell you that they're not even per se certain about how to do things. It's more about the energetic place of who you're being. And if you're sort of elegantly communicating, or you care about other human beings, people feel that. So if you're in person and you want to follow up and say someone on a tangible level is like, oh, I'm not interested, have a good sense of humor, right? Remember this: a laughing jury is never a hanging jury. A laughing jury is never a hanging jury. So how do you want to be sold? If you didn't want what you're selling them, how would you want somebody to follow up with you? Go back in your life, write a list on a piece of paper. How did somebody follow up with you that you really appreciated or respected? The other thing too is I would say find people who value what it is that you're selling. Like a lot of times, if you just morph how you look at the situation, you can follow up more elegantly. But at the end of the day, say it's digital, right? Say it's over email or Instagram or follow up like that. Ask for a step. When I would go to interview or for a sale or whatever, I wouldn't say, hey, do you want to buy the thing? I would say, hey, I say it's for the interviews. I'd say, hey, I'd send a message instead of saying like, hey, oh my God, I'm a big fan of what you do. And I'm sure, John, you get this. I know I get this. Like, hey, can you mentor me for free? Or can you mentor? It's like, hey, we'd love to help people, but we can only help people who show that they're serious on our radar. There's only so many hours in the day and we already have things going on. As much as we'd love to help everybody, it's like, you can't. So the way that gets filtered to the top, the way you get taken seriously is by demonstrating some sort of value first. So for example, in my communication, I'll compliment or whatever, give a message, but at the end I'll say like, I was wondering who would be the best point person to talk to about this, or, like say you're pitching someone something through a message or email, hey, put about yourself, what your offer is, and say, would love to talk to you about it, but if you're busy right now, happy to schedule a time later, or to see if it would be a good fit, or who would be the best person to talk to. Or if you ask for permission, a lot of people don't because they're fearful they'll get a no. Believe it or not, if you ask for permission to get to the next step, you'll get a lot further than if you're just trying to close the deal on the one touch. You want to be in rapport. And if you think about it, the best salespeople in the world don't look like they're selling. John, Tony Robbins, have you ever seen Tony Robbins sell something intentionally or consciously? Never. People run to him to buy this. I'm wearing his hat, but it's because of the energy they're putting out there. So if you're a professional salesperson or entrepreneur or whatever it is, whether it's in person or digitally or whatever, and you're coming from a place of wanting to care about people, they will feel that. And if you genuinely, hey, would love to talk to you about this opportunity or this or that, and they're, oh, I'm not interested. So no problem. I totally understand. And then find a way to get rapport, right? The more you can get in rapport with them, the only reason someone shuts you down is because they don't trust you or they feel there's an agenda. That's right. But when you can align with their values, they have no reason to shut you down. You can't spit at this. You can't spit at the sky. So don't give them something to shut down, right? People only answer the questions you ask them. So if you're setting yourself up for failure, if I say, hey, John, what color is your underwear? Don't answer the question. I know it's a crazy question, but I guarantee, the reason I'm saying that is because for anybody listening, what color is your socks? Whether or not you answered the question out loud, I guarantee you 100% that you went into your brain to answer the question, right? You ask yourself a question, you'll get an answer. The same is true with prospects. So control the questions. They're going to answer questions anyway. They're going to respond to somebody anyway. What is that person doing that's getting a response out of them, a valuable response that you are not? And then reverse engineer it. Elegantly follow up. In the case of follow-up, I would say, if they say not interested, no problem. Would it be okay if I follow up with you next month? No. Would it be okay if I follow up with you, in a couple months? If you get their permission to the next step over a sustained period of time, you're going to have a lot of things blooming, a lot of seeds planted. And then that's when you can really harvest.
Good. I got 2 more questions. We're going to do quick responses to these. One of them is from Shin. He basically says, how do you deal with people who give you a 50% yes, like where they initially say yes, but then later something comes up or changes in their mind, and then they back down or say they don't want anymore? Or what do you say to make each yes 100% that they can actually show up when they say they will?
That's a phenomenal question, and I'm okay. And here's how I'll answer it. If you're focusing on that one transaction, it's going to mess with your head. I'm gonna give you an explanation and answer. I'll make this one quick. I promise you guys. If you have 10, say you have 10 deals going on, right? Or you're actively working on creating new ones, you're not going to be so worried about the one. And if you're in a momentous space with closing the deals, they're going to come into that momentum with you, just in how you communicate, whatever. So logically, it's different person to person. But what I would tell you is, if you're stuck in a situation where they give you 50 yes, 50 no, I would be unafraid to confront the thing. Just say, hey, like a lot of times, and I've learned this over the years. You say like, well, hey, what information would you need to make a decision today? If you ask that, they're not going to be like, well, no matter what, there's no decision, there's nothing, whatever. And if they say that, then okay, clearly this is a fear thing. But if you preface it, or if you're just giving information with no context of time, people will always get away with what you allow them to get away with, right? But if you're coming from a place of like, well, hey man, the outcome of this is, even Ed told me that he used to always say, hey, look, we're going to share a lot of great stuff, and I just want to be 100% transparent. My intention is to make sure that this gets taken care of for you today, and we'll see whether or not that happens. But I just want to let you know that is my intention to be here today. I'm not just here to talk to you. I'm here to really help you with your life and your values and setting up your finances. So just want to give you full context. Is that okay?
Yeah.
When you do that up front, people have to make a decision. Where they're going to say, no, get out of my house now, right?
Yeah.
But if you create some sort of urgency in who you're being, and you're not emotionally dependent on the one deal, or you're thinking about that one deal or that one commission, it's going to mess you up. People are going to feel that desperation. But if you're in momentum, imagine you have 100 deals. How would you talk to that person? You would be unafraid to figure out what it is. Confront it directly. Don't be afraid to confront it directly. Let me ask you a question. What would you have to know to make a decision? Yeah. Or say, oh, hey, let me think about it. Or, hey, let me follow up. Or, hey, I'm 50% or I won't show up. I'll ask them. And I've been asked this before on sales calls, and I really appreciate it. When I book the time, people will ask me, hey, Omar, just a quick question in advance. Is there any possibility that something could come up during that time that would hinder you? Or are you 100% clear in that time for a call? Like, I'm not going to chase you or anything. When you first make the appointment. And that, I remember that, because then when the appointment time came up, it was like, oh, I already committed to, like, I can't, I'm a man of my word, right? So they just did that little tie up at the end. Like, and again, it's, hey, Omar, quick question. I know you said 5 o'clock on Thursday works. Just wondering, is it possible that something would come up at that time, or do I have your word that I can count on you to let me help you out here? You see what I'm saying? That little thing energetically makes me commit. So it's all the little things. It's not the big things. Some deals you're not going to get, but if you can just maximize the little things, right? You can't guarantee anything in life. All you can do is maximize the odds. So maximize your odds from an abundant place over a sustained period of time, you will win.
Great. All right. Final question for you, Omar. Hey guys, has Omar been doing amazing so far? I mean, let's give him a big round of applause, man. Give him a thumbs up, everybody. Little thing on the bottom. All right. Final question here from Tony Gomez. When you start the journey,
yes.
All these comments going up, great content, awesome, et cetera, et cetera. Thanks, guys. It says, and moving through your funk of life situation, how did you move forward and turn your negative stuff into a positive situation?
Yeah. So again, it goes back. Great question. Whoever asked that, I really appreciate you asking that for the group, and yourself. Nothing in life has any meaning except the meaning that you give it. And I cannot stress to you enough how much that single thought has changed my life. You get to choose, and that's the greatest gift of life. I personally believe in God. I'm a man of faith. I respect everybody's beliefs, but to me, nothing happens on this planet without a good reason. The only thing that's imperfect is our perception. The universe is perfect. And I know a lot of people would argue that, but there's only two things in life you can control: perception or your procedure. Perception and procedure. Everything else is emotional. Perception, procedure, and emotions. That's it. And a lot of times our emotions are guiding us. We don't have emotional muscle. So when you're in a funk, or you're in a tough time, or you're in a situation where, and John, I would love to, add this point about creating content even during this time to help people with their business, if time permits at the end of this question. Yeah. But if you're going through a funk, or you're going through a situation, I would encourage you to ask yourself a series of empowering questions. So I would encourage all of you to grab a pen and paper right now. So if you're listening to this, literally right now, not tomorrow, not after the call, right now. Yeah. Right now. You strike when, in the great words of Jim Rohn, strike when the idea is hot and the emotion is strong. Right now, I'd encourage you to all put a situation that's hurting you stopping. Maybe it's your finances. Maybe it's your relationship. Maybe it's the person you're in quarantine with. Maybe it's your business. Maybe it's you want to start this, or you want to do this, whatever. Maybe it's an obstacle, or maybe you're financially affected. Maybe you lost your job. Maybe your loved ones are sick, right? Whatever it is. And I would encourage you to write down a piece of paper and ask yourself a series of empowering questions, at a minimum 10. Empowering questions you can ask yourself to find a way to break through. Here's an example. When I was first listening to Tony Robbins, I was 19 years old. I was trying to be an actor. And I was in LA at an acting class. As you know, in LA, parking is terrible. So I parked in this place, got a ticket, didn't have any money. Classic story in my life in my early 20s. Got a parking ticket. And I heard that night as I was driving home, I was listening to Tony Robbins. And he was saying nothing in life has any meaning except the meaning that you give it. You ask yourself an empowering question, you get an empowering answer. The example he gave was, a lot of people say, well, damn, I keep being fat. Like, how do I get in shape? That's not a compelling question. But if you say, how can I lose weight and enjoy the process in less than 10 minutes a day? Boom, now you've got some power. To go even further, how could I lose some weight, enjoy the process, and have it be even more fun than not working out in 15 minutes or less a day, right? So you can chisel and filter and funnel your answers. And you're just like I gave you guys the example earlier, asking you what color is your underwear, what color is your socks. You ask your brain a question, it'll give you an answer. So if you don't like the results in your life, the results of your life are indicative of the answers to the questions you've been asking yourself up to this moment. So if you want a better life, ask yourself better questions, you'll get better answers. And here's the cool part. You're not responsible for the answers. You're only responsible for the questions. The universe answers your questions. All you're responsible to do is ask questions and take action. The rest comes to you. Remember that. So important. Sorry, I went into a tangent here. What was I getting to, John? About the...
Well, you were going to also now add to, because I know you got to get to another call or meeting or something, or webinar. So you were talking about how you want to help people create content. Like, how does people create content?
Oh, no, right before that, they were talking about breaking through. I was answering someone's question before I get to the content. They're saying about how to break through the tough time. Is basically to ask yourself, the list. So ask yourself empowering questions about that situation. So for example, as I listened to the Tony thing, I got a parking ticket and I said, well, what's good about this, right? So this is what I would encourage you guys to write down on that piece of paper right now. Ask yourself, well, what's good about this? How's my life better because of this? How could I make more money because of the situation I'm in now? What does this situation now open up that wasn't open up prior? How do the things that are stacked against me right now make me even more determined? How could I use this in my story? How could I use my current situation to help me sell? For example, when the girlfriend broke up with me, I did this exercise and I told myself, how could I use this? And one of the answers I wrote down in this exercise I'm about to give you guys was, I said, how can I use this breakup to make my life and humanity better? And I said, well, I'm going to use this story to inspire others. And I've told it millions of times on my podcast. I'm telling it now, and it's inspiring some of you guys. So thanks be to her, you guys get inspired. I get to have this show and all this stuff happen, right? So the ripple effect. So everything in the universe is balanced, centered. right? There's an equilibrium in the universe. Even when you guys go sick, not sick, homeostasis exists, right? You guys go back to 98.6 degrees. The same is true of the world. So anytime you're out of balance, you have an emotional, intellectual fever, if you will, right? Negative thinking is an emotional fever. So how do you bring it back to balance? You get grateful and you appreciate what it is that was heating you up, right? So if something's heating you up with, oh man, I can't figure out how to create content, or man, I'm stuck in this thing, or man, this relationship, or this, whatever, ask yourself on that piece of paper 10 empowering questions about your life right now that is currently a perceived fever. So examples of the questions I would encourage you guys to write down right now and answer directly after this call are, what's good about X? Why is me not getting this better for my life than if I were to have gotten it, right? For example, if I would have got the girl, I probably would have stayed at Tesla, been making nothing compared to what I'm doing now, not affected or inspired millions of people, right? So I would ask yourself 10 empowering questions, and feel free to play with the narrative. What's good about this? How's my life better? How could I use this? How could I make more money because of this? What have I learned from this? How is this made me a better person? How can I help other people dealing with this situation? And write down those answers, and you'll find that when you get balance in that, you'll actually be more excited about those answers than you are about the negative stuff, and that's what will get you out of a rut. Remember, the only problem you have is the perception that you have a problem.
Ooh, there you go. That's a good one right there.
Yeah. This could be the greatest gift of your life. Oprah, at 13 years old, 14 years old, was molested and raped by her uncle, got pregnant at 14. But because she asked empowering questions, she's gone on to become a billionaire that's inspired hundreds of millions of people because of how she used what happens. Nothing in life has any meaning except the meaning that you give it. You get to choose. Is this meaning a breakdown, or is this your moment of breakthrough? It's up to you, and the rest of the world will wait to see your answer through your actions.
That's right.
Whatever you're dealing with right now is the greatest gift humanly possible. And even if you don't believe that, I would encourage you to suspend belief to that being true, because what's the best case scenario of being pessimistic? What's the best case scenario of not doing this exercise? Get more of the same? How's that been going so far?
Yeah.
No?
Exactly. How about last thing? Content. What advice can you give? Everybody, problem. One of the best things I think that Instagram did was, for most people, they have removed the public viewing of likes, right? And I mean, the younger generation today, it's so sad because they want the approval, they want the endorsement. They make a post, but they might get like 10 likes, and they're like, oh my God, people don't like me. They don't like my content or whatever. Not even realizing that a lot of this stuff, why some people don't even get to see your content, is just understanding algorithms and how Facebook and Instagram, what little things that they're looking for when people make a post. But when you make a post, whether it's on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, I mean, you're getting your message out, and a lot of people simply don't even want to make any content, right? Because they feel like, well, who's going to want to listen to me? Nobody knows me. Well, and guys, and I get that. I mean, nobody knows you now, but you can't just expect to do like one post a week and expect that the world's going to find out who you are, right? So I want you guys to be consistent with everything. Everything that Omar's talking about, being persistent and consistent. But Omar, what would you advise people in creating content so that people can get legitimate followers, not bots, not fake people, which is what 98% of most people's followers are.
Yeah.
I mean, you have built up a solid following yourself. I mean, what do you have, like almost 6 million now?
Almost 7 million downloads on the podcast on YouTube. It's over 112,000 subscribers. Yeah, I mean, we've reached millions of people. It's almost 7 million. If you add up everything, it's probably in the tens of millions.
Yeah, and you started from scratch. So what would you recommend all these people to create content, maybe even starting their own YouTube channel, et cetera, et cetera?
So the first thing I would say is I personally have never bought followers. I don't think there's anything wrong if you do. But I would really focus on creating content that's valuable. And I've seen so many people get clients in business from this. So if you're in the financial industry and you're creating tips, imagine if you did Finance Fridays. Yeah. Right? Like if you just go on every Friday, you do a 1-minute value on Instagram teaching, hey, what's the difference between whole life and term insurance? Well, contrary to popular belief, If you do that for 10 weeks in a row, you're going to start getting a message. Hey, bro, what's this? Or hey, bro, what's this? Hey, bro, let's hop on a call, right? And there's an opportunity to help them. through your Instagram, through your phone, and we all have it. It doesn't cost you anything. If you're doing it through YouTube, YouTube is the second largest search engine on the planet. There, you know, the 3 most popular search terms on YouTube are actually, or categories searched for, is music, comedy, and how-tos. And nowadays, especially with what's going on, people are looking for financial answers. But regardless of your industry, you know, you could sell. I know people that sell lawnmowers that have a thing on how to have a beautiful garden. You know, if you want to teach people how to podcast, 3 steps to start a podcast. If you have you know, any business or any industry, I guarantee you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, there's somebody in your exact industry, if not in your exact business, that is building an audience, even if they don't have all this complicated tech figured out, in what little way you can as you build momentum, sharing content, and then creating opportunities from that content. So if it's YouTube, I would challenge you, take radical imperfect action and stop judging yourself. You could literally pick up a phone right now in any industry you're in, record a 10-minute selfie video the long way, right? Record a 10-minute selfie video, put it on YouTube within 30 minutes, boom, that's video 1. You're in quarantine anyways. What if you did an experiment where you did, you know, I'm going to do a 10-minute video about a particular topic related to my business with a call to action and my phone number in the description to call me if they have any questions or any way I can help you or be of value, right? Whether this is on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and you do that for 30 days in a row. It'll take you 10 minutes a day. What would happen? What would happen to your business? So I would encourage people, you know, they might look at bigger productions and get overwhelmed or see what you've done with the Think Grow Rich thing. John had no clue what he was doing producing a movie, but he just took radical and perfect action, figured it out, and then made a beautiful film that went on to inspire millions of people and will continue to do. So we're all made of the same skin and bones. The difference is taking action in the face of uncertainty. So I would encourage people to take advantage of content. More content has been consumed. I believe, I'm not sure if this is true, but I heard that in the last 3 months alone, in this first quarter of 2020, more content has been consumed on all social media platforms than was consumed in the entirety of 2019. So you have a dense amount of people on social. I mean, just look at your own life. How much more time are you spending on your phone? There are people looking for answers to solutions that your business might solve. And you might be stuck in the traditional mindset of, no, it has to be in person or business is normally conducted that way. At the end of the day, human beings are human beings. Whether you connect with them in person or over the phone, do the best with what you have. Resourcefulness is the ultimate resource. And if you can just create value on a consistent thing, however imperfectly you would like, just do it. Who cares? Just do it. Just create the thing, get in momentum, and little by little, you'll build momentum and then make it fun. Once you make it fun, boom, you're on autopilot. It's just rinse and repeat. So, but I would say to people, I would encourage you to have a minimum of a 30-day challenge and say, hey, for 30 days, I'm going to post 1 time a day or 1 time every other day or whatever it is about teaching, you know, say if it's finance, teaching about, you know, like I said, you know, the top 3 reasons why health insurance is important, or share a story of somebody who did it. And if you feel nervous about, oh, I look stupid in front of a camera, what if you just had one of your clients in your business, you just said, hey, you know, I'd love to pay you guys $50 for, you know, or $20 or $10, or maybe they'll even do it for free for an honest testimony of what it was like working with me or how our business or product or services helped you. And boom, your content is just testimonies. You don't have to create it. So just, you can repurpose it, have other people do it. You don't have to do it yourself in front of the camera, but if you're committed, there's always a way to start creating content and get a momentum going, and focus on the one person watching it. Don't think, oh, well, nobody's going to watch this. It'll compound with time, and the depth of the bond is more important than the breadth of it. So depth, go deep with people. And the more deeply you serve people, the more you're going to create opportunity for yourself and your business, no matter the economic climate of what's going on.
Awesome. Boom, man. Guys, come on your feet, man. Big round of applause.
I also, as a heads up, John, I have a call in 15 minutes, so I have a little bit of time. If you have it, there's a lot of questions here. I'm trying to be as short as I can be, but you know, I'm big on story. I interview people, so I always want to serve people and make points with stories. But I'm happy to take a couple more questions if you have the time, John.
You know what? Let's okay, great. Let's do that then. Yeah, a bunch of people clapping for you here.
You guys.
Well, well, by the way, I wanted to ask you, so I know you had your girlfriend break up and all that kind of stuff, but now, you're not married?
I'm not married, no, but I am seeing someone now. Yeah.
Oh, you are? Okay, ladies, for those of you that were wondering if he's available, there's your answer, okay? So I try to ask in a very nice way, so he is taken officially. But, hey, you may want to follow up and be persistent, I mean, he's a great but your girlfriend's not gonna like that. All right, so let's just leave that one alone. Okay, so let's see. My buddy right here, brother from another mother, Armando Gill.
Yeah.
He just said, if you were to start all over, what would you do differently now?
Doubted myself less, and realized that a lot of times, a lot of us in business think we're being productive, but we're really just analyzing and overanalyzing in our head, and nothing's really getting done. So I would have, I think it's important to analyze, but I would have moved faster. To answer it simply, I would have just moved faster and move it faster with imperfect action, not knowing everything. Just move faster. The faster you move, the quicker you'll fail, and the quicker you'll learn, and the quicker you'll succeed. So I would fail faster. I would just move faster, so I would doubt myself less and just have confidence to move in the face of uncertainty.
Good. All right, next one here. What do you do for fun, and how do you detach yourself from business and your responsibilities?
I turn off my phone because my phone is insane. We have so many, even during quarantine, our business has exploded.
Yeah.
We have, courses, and we have coaching, and we have like a whole group coaching thing, and we have different packages, and we have production stuff and editing and all this stuff we do. But for fun, I turn off my phone. I watch comedy. And I meditate. I meditate a lot. I believe meditation is so important to recalibrate me. It is very dangerous looking into technology all day long. So I try to laugh, relax, work out. Just try to get out of my head and just kind of get more into my body. Yeah,
agreed.
Yeah.
And by the way, you guys should all be doing that too. I mean, there's a lot of fun things you guys can do at home. Again, that's something you guys could do a YouTube channel right there, right? Some fun exercises at home. And there's your first Instagram post or a little story or something on YouTube. Like, what are you doing at home right now to keep yourself occupied and to working in your confined areas and working out on a daily basis? Make sure you guys are working out. All right, here's one. It says, how many books you read? Well, how many books do you read a day? How about, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. How many books do you read a month?
I'm a voracious reader. I read insane. My challenge is that I'm reading many. So this question, although most people would be like, oh, you read one book a day. I actually am reading currently 6 books. It takes me forever because I'm constantly reading books. I read a lot. I probably read maybe 50 to 100 pages a day, but it's literally every day. And I don't try to or discipline. I just actually love it. And I find if you want to get better at reading, read things that you need. Like, so many people look at reading as this boring thing. I think books are boring if it's not interesting. So here's the trick. Find an area you're either super deficient in or super inspired about and get a book about that. So maybe it's a biography, or maybe you suck at sales, so get a job at sales. Maybe you want to start a business, but you don't know what. Go read a book about how to start a business, how, the top 50. There's so many books out there. How the top 50 billionaires found their idea. Oh, that's interesting. Just find books that are interesting. And actually, that's the only effort you really need. Once you find it, the book hooks you. So I probably read an hour and a half a day.
Good. Awesome. By the way, for those of you, I'm going to do my quick commercial, which is get my book, right? It's called How Rich Asians Think. It is a Napoleon Hill Foundation publication, a Think and Grow Rich publication. And it is available right now on Amazon. And this is the book right here, How Rich Asians Think. And if you don't like to read, I like the book, honestly, because I like to write in it, put tabs on it, little stuff like that. But again, if you don't like to read, I do have the audio now officially on on Amazon. So there you go.
And I've actually read that book and I love it. It's marked full of penmanship. But I do want to add one more thing to you guys, and I highly recommend you guys get it. It's called How Rich Asians Think. It's phenomenal, and it's a smart title. This has helped me, and I got this from Bill Gates. I had a hard time with comprehension. When you read and then you sort of you like read and then you like, oh, what did I just read? So actually I heard that 85% of comprehension goes up by simply having a pen as you read, even if you're not highlighting or whatever. But if I have, so now I never read without a pen. I can't read without it. Literally, I couldn't even read for 5 minutes without my losing focus without a pen. So here's a little hack. Grab a pen and read with a pen, looking to underline points that stick out to you. And don't be afraid to write in the book. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to ruin the book. Use the book. I'd rather you ruin the book than ruin your life.
Oh, I love that.
Underline stuff, write notes. Oh, apply this to my life, or like give an example. So that's a huge hack. Grab a pen and underline things as you go that stick out to you. It'll more deeply just intrinsically hit you, and you'll be more likely to remember it the next day. Apply it when the situation comes up, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, in the book, Rich Asians Think, How Rich Asians Think, Dwayne Johnson, maybe you guys know him as The Rock. Right? What was his breakthrough? Like, what was it for him that got him, over the top in Hollywood, and now the highest paid actor in Hollywood? Keanu Reeves. Many of you guys know Keanu Reeves, right? From The Matrix and John Wick or whatever. We also have Jack Ma, billionaire Jack Ma, okay? The founder of Alibaba. And the list goes on, right? Steve Aoki, and a lot of you guys may or may not know who Steve Aoki is, but, how did Steve Aoki get to where he's at? Where did he come up with the idea? Do you know that, Steve, until just a couple of years ago, hardly ever did any kind of interviews. You won't see him doing any TV interviews because he doesn't like doing interviews, right?
And I tried to get him. We'll get him. Don't worry.
And very hard to get Steve Aoki. And he ended up doing almost a 3-hour podcast with me and interview. And by the way, he actually says in my book, for the first time ever, where he came up with the idea where he takes the cake and he throws it at people in the audience. Where did that come up? How did it come up, and why and where and all that? It's in my book. You have to read it to learn what these big giants in this modern day world has done. And after every chapter, there's wonderful stuff that you can apply to your business. So,
yeah.
But anyway,
and I love how your book also is very relatable. You do a good job of balancing the greatness, but from a narrative of like, you're almost like a consultant, like you're the middleman, like this is what he's doing. How could you apply this to your life? So that narrative, I highly recommend you guys check out that book, How Rich Asians Think. Seriously. I have it it's on the top row of my shelf. So I have my manifestation corner on the top of my shelf, and that's up there right next to Think and Grow Rich. So
awesome.
Yeah, I highly recommend it.
Thanks, Omar. You rock, brother.
It was awesome. Someone asked a quick question. I just want to help them. And by the way, if you guys have any follow-up questions, you guys can DM me on Instagram at Omar_the_rockstar. So it's just at OMAR_the_rockstar, all one word. I don't know if you guys can type it, if anybody's on the chat or your assistant or whatever, just because I know there's questions and I feel so bad that I couldn't help. In terms of, someone asked a quick question about creating content for Instagram. I would say just try stuff that's fun for you. And based on the feedback, that's the beauty of social media. Just create stuff, see what gets engagement, and just try and error. Don't try to be perfect when you launch. Sorry, John, I just really want to serve people. I know what it's like to ask questions and want the answers.
I know.
What steps do you take to manifest what you want? Let me ask you, John. Someone asked a good question. What steps do you take to manifest what you want? I'm curious, from your perspective, what's your advice you would give to people about that? What's your sort of method to the manifestation process in your life and business?
Well, I mean, I think you hit that earlier, which is to have a goal, right? To have a target. How do you hit a target if you don't even have one, right? So most people don't even have a target. So I'll ask people, and when you have a target, it's got to be precise, and there's got to be some specific deadlines. So I want to really tell every single one of you, like if I gave everybody on this webinar, and let's say a ball, and I have, let's say let's just say this is the bullseye, and I gave you the ball, and I said, take your ball, and I want you to hit this target, right? This is your little bullseye target. Well, I'm going to give you two options. I can hold it still like this, or I can have it moving back and forth. Well, what would most of you guys all choose? And most of you guys would probably say, hold it still. I hope that's what common sense would tell you to do, right? And I say that because we all know that common sense isn't common. Okay, good. So you guys know. So you would say, yeah, hold it still, John. And I say, why? He goes, because it's easier to hit. Exactly. And so for most of you guys, when I ask people, I say, well, how much money you want to make? Well, you know, I'm not really sure. I haven't thought about it. I'm not, you know, well, that's why you haven't hit your goal, right? Like,
totally that is true, John. Totally.
Yeah. So I'll go, okay. And then when do you want to hit that by? They just go, I'm not sure, like as soon as possible, you know, whenever, you know, well, here's your target. Hello, right? You're never going to hit your target or be able to manifest the things that you guys want unless there are clear and concise, specific deadlines and targets as to what you guys want. And I mean, it could be the coronavirus, the pandemic, you're sitting at home. Hey, you guys, I mean, God, I feel bad. Like I'm sitting here like on this webinar to tell you guys where I'm at right now, but financially, but like, honestly, I think I'm having one of my best months ever. Like last month and this month are two of my best cash flow months I've ever had. And people are like, John, you're lying. I'm not. And I'll tell you why, because what else am I going to do? I don't have to deal with traffic, right? I don't have to go and meet anybody for lunch and do a 90-minute or 2-hour lunch. I got an extra 2 hours now to go and make money and make phone calls, which is what you guys should be doing right now, right? I mean, you should be like doing phone calls and calling people and say, this is what I have, and I got to share it with you. I don't even know if you know that these things even exist. I literally called somebody up, like out of the blue, an old friend. I was like, hey, bro, long time no talk. Hey, bro, I just want to connect with you, see how you're doing during the coronavirus. And the guy goes, you know what he says to me? He goes, John, what are you doing these days? It was like my inside voice said, and if I'm saying your inside voice and you're like, what inside voice? Well, that inside voice is your inside voice. The one that asked that question, that inside voice basically said, I thought you'd never ask. And so that's where it lead me in and say, hey, bro, you know what I've discovered? That there's this thing called the PPP, Paycheck Protection Program. There's the EIDL, the Economic Disaster Loans, right? The SBA programs. There's all these wonderful things. And I just want you guys to know that this coming Saturday at 11 o'clock a.m. Pacific time, I'm going to get into a whole bunch of stuff again that I want you guys to dial in and listen to, because I think what I'm going to share with you this coming Saturday is going to be unbelievable. And then I believe next week on Tuesday, I've got another lady. Her name is Penny Oy, who will be joining us on our podcast and our webinar. So join us next week, Tuesday, and this coming Saturday. I think it's going to be phenomenal, and I look forward to seeing you guys all soon. And Omar, I know you got to get to another webinar or meeting or Zoom call. So I'm grateful that you joined us and that all these people got tremendous value, and your nuggets and your golden nuggets, as some people said here in some of these comments. And so I appreciate you, brother. You are crushing it out there. You are a rock star. Continue to do what you do, man. You are, you are, you know, here to serve, and we know that the Heavenly Father above has blessed you in so many ways. So keep it up, bro. Keep it up.
Thank you so much, and thank you to you guys listening. Thank you, John. And again, if you guys have any follow-up questions or whatever, you want to check out the show, you can check out The Passionate Few on YouTube. Just type my name or The Passionate Few. You guys can follow me on Instagram at Omar_the_Rockstar. You guys can also find me on Facebook. Just find me on whatever platform. Be resourceful. And I'm happy to serve you guys. And if there's any way we can hook you up, if you just mention or whatever, and you're interested in any of our products or services, I'll have my team hook you guys up for free with anything you guys want. So just as my gift to you guys, just for being on the call and you know, sort of being a part of John's mission and movement. And thank you so much. I appreciate you, John. So yeah, Omar Elattar, O-M-A-R, last name Elattar, E-L-A-T-T-A-R. Again, on Facebook, it's O-M-A-R, last name E-L-A-T-T-A-R. Follow my regular profile, not the fan page. My team runs the fan page, but on the regular Facebook, we'll connect, or Instagram at Omar the Rockstar. Just be resourceful. Find one of those, get in touch. If you have any questions, I promise I'll answer every single one soon. So happy to serve you guys. And thank you again, John. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Thank you guys for being on today.
Take care, everybody. We love you. Thanks, Omar.
All right, take care. Live strong. Remember, if somebody could live their dreams, why not you and why not now? If it's going to be, it's up to you guys.
That's right. Peace, everyone.